Cozy Gloves here. This is the 8th video in the FM8 tutorial series from the ground up. So we're going to teach you today, or hopefully you'll learn with me, about the Morph Knob. So we're going to go here to New Sound real quick, and we're going to explore the concept of the Morph Knob. My first goal is to give you a comprehensive idea about what the Morph Knob does and how it can change your sound. Because if you don't understand what you're doing here, you could overwrite your data pretty easily. It was a little confusing at first for me. So we have this easy/morph. The reason it's called easy/morph is because you could easily set up one sound to change through a whole bunch of parameters, and you could switch between sounds easily. You could have 4 presets open and just go like this and switch between sounds. So it's called easy, but it can also morph between them. So that's why it's got easy/morph. As you go along, you'll see more of what I'm talking about. So first off, you'll see that we have this box here, this obvious grid with this little dot we can move around. We can even change the dimensions of this dot, which we'll talk about later. And you can load stuff in here. You see it says default in all 4 corners right now. Well, let's go to our browser tab and let's pick 4 presets and drop them in the evil twin it has up here. It's got a little evil twin up here for reasons that you can't have the browser in the Easy Morph Options tab open at the same time. You also have this edit all function, which we'll discuss as we get farther into this, and you will learn the secrets of this edit all button. So pick 4 presets. I'm going to read mine out loud because for reasons we'll see in a second. I'm going to pick 303 and I'm going to drop it in the first box. And I'm going to drop an 80s pad and drop it in the second box. And then I'm going to pick a 909 resonant tom noise snare, put it in the third one, and I'm going to pick, what is this, Abafare or something, put it in the last one. So now we're going to go to our Easy Morph option, and our 303 80s pad, that crazy name, and the 909 resonant noise snare has popped up in our box. And if we go to the different corners where they reside, they basically live there, you can hear them. So we're going to call these corners like our master corners. This is where the sound at its most changed is. And if we move in between them, you get some sort of like radio station interference. So you hear all these different interpolations going in between all these things, and what it's doing is it's got these parameters that it can change and move around, and there are certain things it can't change and move around. And so what it's doing is it's taking the resonance, it's taking the timbral changes. The reason they say it's timbral changes is because it's moving things that only affect the timbre of the sound. So for example, when I move this over here, you can see the spectrum content changing like a ton, like whoa, what's all this change about? Well, it's allowed to. It's been told, the Morph box has been given some instructions. It can move the FM amount. And if you don't know FM amount, or you don't understand ratios yet, go watch my what is FM tutorial video real quick, because it'll help you understand a little bit better what I'm talking about right now, why this is a big deal. So it can change the level input of these guys. It can change the ratio. It can switch between waveforms. It doesn't morph between them. It switches between them. It can, which is kind of ironic, it can go and move the analog and digital around. There are a few other things that it can do as well, which don't come to my mind right now, but you can move them around and see for yourself if it makes any kind of a difference. There's a few things important to note that it can't change. It can't morph around the arpeggiator. So if you've got an ARP, it won't work. It cannot. It'd be interesting to see. I think if you set an ARP on a morph, it uses the ARP as a global thing, so it applies it to all 4. If you have, it can't do envelopes. That's what I wanted to say. It cannot do envelopes. So these envelopes right here, they're untouchable. Morphbox can't touch those. And so that's what that is, and it's morphing between those, and that's really neat. Now you can have 4 presets open in one synth, and you can even have some pretty smooth transitions that kind of go beyond what any kind of a filter could do. But let's go to something simpler so we can cover more of the concept of the morph, because this can become really important when you're saving your sounds. So we're going to click New Sound. We have a sine wave. It's a beautiful thing. We're going to our things down here, so we're going to make this corner the sine wave corner. This is where our sine wave has his family and all his friends. They all live down here with their sine wave buddies. And if you move it up to default, it still sounds like a sine wave, but I guarantee you not. This is like the sine wave's evil twin. So if we move some parameters around while we're in this position as opposed to down here where the sine wave lives, it will stay that way up here, and we can then morph between the two. So let's go change some things. Let's go change some things that I mentioned earlier. So we'll move the analog all the way up. Isn't that wonderful? And we're going to go to our expert tab. We're going to turn oscillator E on, and we're going to route that sucker into F. And we get this, that annoying mosquito tone thing. And now if we move, so we're going to turn this into like the evil twin of our sine wave. And so if we move between the evil twin and the sine wave, whoa, we get all manner of in between, which is really cool. So now you know that's what it's doing. It's moving those parameters up and down, and you can do 2 more. You can even set up 2 more, and that would work. Now, let's say you really like that sound, and you save your project, and you've composed everything with it, and you're happy about that sound, but oh man, bummers, man. You forgot to hit the apply button down here. Does it sound any different? Nope, but what just happened? Well, you couldn't see it, but it reset our settings it zeroed them out, and our sound stayed the same. It changed those settings so that our sound would be the same sound when we morphed, and it applied it into what's called the edit buffer. And when you save your project, now that data is saved. But if you didn't do that and you come back, you're in for a treat. It's not going to sound anything like you left it if you did a lot of stuff with the morphing tool. So it's just real important to know about that apply, and reset does pretty much what you think it would do. It resets it. Now if you hit normalized timbres, it's Timbres. Don't ask me why it's pronounced timbres. It's some language thing from some other culture. Because I mean, in America we'd say timbres is what I would think we'd say, but for some reason it's timbres. Pretty sure it has to do with Latin. Anyways, if you hit this, the tone that we have in this corner will become the tone in all 4 of our master corners. So if you come up here and touch that, and then hit normalize timbres, all of a sudden everything changes, and everything's turned into our evil sine wave. It just took over the world. But we don't want to do that. So we're going to go to File, New Sound, and we're back to our default dealio. Free to make more changes. So now you can kind of see how it changes timbre and how it morphs, but it also is a great way to edit your sound, because you can hit apply, and you come to a sound this way. And now we're going to talk about all the other modules on here. I guess there's a few more things we need to talk about in this morph knob. So let's make a few more changes. So let's move it away and change some stuff. Let's just do that. Make it simple. Okay, so we have our what we had before up, evil twin in the sine wave's home. And we want more variation. We want to combine it with some other stuff. So let's drop a preset in this top box, and let's drop a different preset in this bottom box. And now we get this. As you can see, this is like an incredible tool, but it gets even better. Besides the normalized timbres, which you probably don't want to touch ever unless you've reached a sound you really enjoy and you want to see what you can do with that, you have these sliders up here. What these sliders do is they create more data points to take various parameters and combine them together. So you can get, as you see, we just made our x-axis much larger, and we could even take it even further and go up, and you see we get our y-axis points. And as we move our graph around, we have all these points and we're collecting data. And we just got a whole bunch of data from all 4 of our boxes at the same time. So that's how you do that. And they also have this neat random seed option down here, which just randomizes our points. I wonder if that's automatable. I want to find out real fast. Oh, it totally is automatable. How cool is that? If you're in FL Studios, it's definitely automatable. Should be automatable in the DAW you're using if you're using a different DAW. But as you can also see, when you move to a corner, it scrunches down at that corner. So you still have your 4 master corners just like you want it. So that's what those do. Now we can move over to this other stuff. So you have this effects, and I'm assuming you've watched my 2 effects videos, even though they are rather lengthy. And if you have used other synthesis stuff before, you probably know what most of these effects already do. But you can turn them on and off here. You can't edit their settings though. You have to go into your settings to edit them, and you can't load templates from this menu. I don't know if Native Instruments will ever see these tutorials, but man, that would be a cool feature to add, is just add your templates here. Because I mean, editing might be a little hard to fit in a plugin this big, but you have room for one little template button. So that'd be cool. But anyways, that's what the effects do. You can just turn them on and off real fast, and then you can go and edit them if you want. I guess you get a sort of a preview of what would happen if you put that on there. Let's go over to this output. This is the amount of output, your master out. Another master volume. These volume knobs are everywhere. And then you also have velocity, which is the sensitivity it has to the velocity you're hitting. I have a MIDI keyboard with no velocity touch, so it doesn't really matter. But if I were to go into FL Studios and change the velocity on the piano roll or my MIDI layout, whatever you want to call it, it would respond to that. And then you also have stereo width. This is mono. This is left ear. And then that's the middle. That's pretty much just evenly out both. So that's what stereo width does. I'm wearing headphones, so I really hate it when it's over on that side. Oh, a quick note. I haven't mentioned this yet. If you hold down Shift, it makes all your changes finer versus not holding down Shift. Just a really cool option that will probably come in very handy when you're messing with this here expert tab. Then after that, you have, let's talk about the timbre. This changes your harmonic ratios. It does not physically show the change on your oscillators. It doesn't actually show them. But I think that's because it'd be pretty hard to show that, especially if you're morphing. How are you supposed to show that in the oscillators if you're taking like 4 and then taking it all together? Like when you really think about it, they're taking all these different presets that you have, all with different expert matrices going on, and then they're taking that information, they're crunching it down to one number essentially that you hear, and it's got to be a very flexible number that can happen really fast, and then you can change the ratios of those operators. So I'm not surprised they don't have a way for you to see this, but it's totally apparent because you can hear it. So let's go over here. So anyways, that's changing the ratio of your operators. Detune, very slight detune. Detunes that, your overtone series. What you'd expect. Brightness, it's probably a high shelf, which guess what? It is. But it also, if you looked, it adds stuff up there, man. There wasn't stuff there before. And now there's stuff. Where did that stuff come from? Dude, you got me. Because it doesn't affect our sine wave. So that's interesting. It's like if you watched my effects video, which I'm hoping you have, it's like that bass knob I told you about that lies. It adds all that high-end spectral content. Yeah, it makes your bass louder, but did all that. This brightness knob is like they're in an alliance. Then you have this envelope amount, which references this timbre envelope and how much it affects this your morphing sound. We're going to talk about that in a second because, as I said before, you can't morph envelopes, but they give you two big envelopes here that you can mess with. Then you have velocity, which just changes how sensitive it is to velocity change, but with reference to the timbre envelope. So keep that in mind. We'll go over that after we go over the LFOs. You have an LFO. You can control the rate. Whoop-de-doo-doo. You have a vibrato that is directly affected by this LFO. As you can see, it basically controls the rate of the vibrato, and same thing for the tremolo. Now again, in music, in not real music, I guess, I could get yelled at for saying that. In written music, tremolo is when you hit two chords going on and off, like you're hitting a D major and a G major, and you're going back and forth really fast. It's like a crazy trill. But in sound design, they've for some reason changed the definition to where it is an amplitude on off, on off, on off, on off. I don't know why. And it works for the whole chord though. If you do that with vibrato, moves the pitch around a little. And then you have this timbre knob, which determines how much this LFO has an effect on our timbre, which will again be determined by our timbre envelope down here. So let's get to talking about this timbre envelope. Oh, by the way, before we do that, you should now know what the edit all option does. If you make a change down here, it'll change all four corners. In terms of ratio and FMing and all that other stuff. And if you have that off, it doesn't. So now you know that could or could not be something that you desire to do. Maybe if you're going for a transient, hard transient at the beginning of every sound, that would be, oh, actually you can't do envelopes. So you'd have to be pretty smart if you want to do something like that. But you do have this envelope down here, the amplitude envelope and the timbre envelope. So the timbre envelope, if we go over here to our sound that has changes going on, it's got that FM synthesis going on. This, first we need to talk about envelopes before I forget. So let's go to an envelope. Boom, here's an envelope. It even says ENV, stands for envelope. Now there are four major stages of an envelope. For this kind of envelope, there are actually different kinds. There's ADSR, which stands for attack, decay, sustain, release. And now what an envelope is used for is it tells a signal how to behave. So if you had an oscillator, this is actually why they're called operators and why all synthesizers are kind of lying to you and they say oscillator. Oh, if you have an oscillator, that oscillator does not turn on and off when you hit a key. That's not the oscillator's job. The oscillator's job is to oscillate. So it just oscillates forever. And you have to figure out how you want to control it. And they use envelopes to do that. So this envelope, we're going to make it into an ADSR. This is a really cool envelope. They allow you to pretty much make whatever the heck you want. So you have the attack. So right now, it's coming on instantly, like bang, just straight on, boom, on. If you're going to move it out, and this was the sound, it'd go wah, 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 wah. This is actually still pretty quick. If you make it out longer, it'd be wah, like that. So that's what the attack is. And if we were to compare this to a piano, if we were to make like a piano note envelope, there is the decay. So the piano note would hit, bang, like be pretty quick. So we bang, piano note hits, then it would decay a little bit. And so it would go down in volume. Then it would sustain, and it would stay at a volume for a particular length of time, especially if you have the pedal down. And then it would release. And when you release, it's going to have all these refractions around the room. So you're going to hear reverb, and that would contribute to the sense of release a little bit or a lot of it. And so our release would look something like that. So you have your attack, decay, sustain, and release. So if we come over here to our envelope, this is the timbre envelope. So it controls the attack, decay, sustain, and release for our timbral changes. So we have over here, we're changing the E. This is being changed. 100% of E is going into F. So if we take our decay, and if we turn up the values, that means the attack will increase, meaning the attack will go like this. It'll increase. If we turn down the decay, it will decrease. And you can only decrease so far. You can only decrease to 0. After that, it means the same thing. So right now, we're at 0. So the attack just pops right on. You hear the modulation come up right away. But if we were to turn our decay up to be pretty slow, you'd hear our sine tone, our original sine tone, and then you'd hear the modulation come. And there you have it. So that's what's going on there. Starts off with that sine tone, and it goes wah, just like that. The sine tone happens real fast. It's because it starts turning the modulation on little by little pretty quick. So I'm going to kind of skip the decay right now. Don't worry about it too much. I mean, it has the same properties, but we're going to talk about the sustain because 90% of the time on this particular envelope, it's the sustain that's going to do the thing you want the decay to do. So if we turn our sustain up, it's already at its maximum value. So it's already there. But if you turn the sustain down, it's the same as taking our sustain, whoops, that's the decay, and turning it down. And so it'll sustain at a lower volume. So it'll take our modulation and bring it down when it reaches the peak of the attack. And actually, I guess I should talk about the decay real quick. The decay determines how fast that change happens. So decay all the way up makes that change happen really slow. So I guess the reasoning behind this is you need to change your sustain to really hear the decay take effect. Then you have release, makes a longer release, which in this particular scenario, it's not really a reverb type of release, it's a modulation type of release. So it's kind of weird. If you turn the release down, the release happens really fast. And I believe that is how that works. Or this could be backwards. Just a quick disclaimer, I may have said that backwards. In any case, you're changing how long or short this is. I believe up increases the value, which to me would make it go out. But this could be backwards because attack makes the value go out. So this could be going in. I don't know. It's and this kind of when you keep in mind that it's changing the amount of modulation that's coming onto your sound through the Morph tab, it may not make any difference at all. Now this amplitude envelope affects your entire sound. So we're going to go to our sine wave to demonstrate this. It acts the same way as any ADSR envelope would be. It's literally a volume envelope. So turn your attack up, slow attack, sustain. And if we go over here to where our timbre changes. But if now this is powerful when you start applying the amplitude with the timbre. So let's make our amplitude slow and our timbre slow. You see that when you have it down on the amplitude, our sine wave comes right on in, but our timbre still comes in slow. So that's what these two things do. And that is pretty much the easy morph options here. I highly encourage you to go out and make some amazing morphing sound things. Toss it in your tracks. You can create some really cool ethereal stuff. Just drench it in reverb and stick it in the background, and people will be tripping out, man. Again, now if you make some changes, one more note. If you make some changes and you like that sound, and you remember, you have to hit apply. It zeroes everything out, but you still have that envelope effect. Important to keep note, if you want to take it off, you'd have to do that now. And that's because now when you save it in your project, it will be saved and you can come back and you can use that sound. And don't forget about this reset, except for if we hit reset right now, it says that it's supposed to go back to its original unedited sound. So before we applied these envelopes, maybe it's something specific to envelopes, but this is our sound. If we hit reset, no dice, man. It's the same as before. So I don't know what the deal is, but reset to me just that says it doesn't work. But let's really quick check and change something. Let's change this down to like 9. And let's hit apply. So we have our sound, it's been applied. Now let's hit reset to go to the previous before we applied it sound. And it doesn't work. So if someone knows what I'm doing wrong with the reset, let me know. I know the apply button can be a big deal, and based on the fact that the reset button's behave in ways that I don't understand, the apply button may be doing the same thing. So if you guys are saving projects with this in there, let me know if it works. It's been working for me, so I haven't had any problems. So, but I hit apply just to be like safe. If you enjoy these tutorials, subscribe, drop a comment below if you enjoy these videos, and have a blessed day.
Thank you.